Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another episode of Dave's Faves, my absolute favorite recordings. And today I'm going to be talking about one of the great operas of the 20th century. I refer, of course, to Poulenc, Dialogue des Carmelites, Dialogues of the Carmelites. I mean, this is such a weird opera when you first come to it as a naive listener, because all you know is that it's an opera, it's about nuns, and something happens to the nuns. And what are they talking about? It's about dialogues. What on earth do they have to talk about? You might want to ask yourself. Well, the story is actually quite fabulous. What'd you get right? That's a wonderful story. You know, Poulenc had incredible literary taste. He really did. He set fabulous poetry for his songs, and he was very careful over his choice of libretti, even when they were wacky, like in Les Mamelles de Tiresias, the breasts of Tiresias, the opera buffa. He could do funny stuff, he could do serious stuff, but his setting of words was unbelievably acute. And people who think that Poulenc was not a great composer simply don't understand all the dimensions of music in which he worked, because there were very few 20th century composers who were more affecting and accurate in their setting of their language, whatever language they chose. And this is his masterpiece in that field. He really has an entire system of beautiful French declamation. It's music to listen to the singers simply get through the libretto in this opera. It really, really is. It's a marvelous experience, like nothing else. Some people say he was influenced by Mussorgsky's Boris Godunov, that idea of setting the language in a continuous stream of recitation or melody, of a non-Wagnerian quality. And that may be true. That very well may be true. But Poulenc's, shall we say, professionalism is a mile away from Mussorgsky's sort of naive genius, which is what he was, of course. Anyway, the story here, in case you're curious, is, yes, there is a woman. Her name is Blanche de la Force. She's neurotic. It's very French. She's one of those neurotic French ladies. There's so many of them floating around. And she can't deal with life because she's so neurotic, so she decides to enter a convent. And this is during the French Revolution. And she enters the convent. And the story is about what happens to these nuns and to Blanche in the convent. It's really a remarkably touching story, because what happens, of course, is that this takes place during the French Revolution, and Blanche's own family is captured and largely killed. She winds up in the convent having to deal with the forces that she's trying to avoid. The more she runs away, the more she's confronted with the horrors of the revolution. And eventually, all of the nuns are sentenced to death as, treasonous, and they're beheaded, one by one, singing a Salve Regina. And that last few minutes is one of the most gripping few minutes of music in all of opera. It's unbelievable. It's so intense and so moving and so beautiful, sensually beautiful, sinfully sensually beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. But what's happening is so horrifying. And that's that wonderful tension. We find the same thing in Richard Strauss's Salome, of course, right? The final scene is unbelievably opulent and glorious. And what's happening is she's singing to a severed head. It's beyond horrifying. And that's what's happening here too. It's that tension between the beauty of the music and the horror of what the music expresses that makes it so gripping. And Poulenc builds the tension to that concluding scene fabulously. And I will say, that final guillotine chop makes a fabulous ringtone or text tone. I have it on my phone. Whenever I get a text, I get the Dialogue to the Carmelites guillotine going ka-chunk. Well, in the meantime, this opera has been recorded several times, but this was the premiere recording, premiere studio recording anyway, in French. Poulenc insisted that it be performed in the native language wherever it was being sung. So it was originally performed, I believe, in Italian, and when they did it here at the Met, they did it in English, and bravo to that. He thought it was important that you at least have an opportunity to understand some of what these people are singing about. And this performance, though, in French, in mono, but very good mono, just beautiful sound. You don't have to worry about that it's in mono, is amazing. And it gives you a sort of who's who of great French female singers of the 1950s. And it features Denise Duval, who as Blanche, who was the Poulenc singer par excellence, and Régine Crespin, the young Régine Crespin, who's amazing, as Madame Lidouin. She's the Lidouin. She's the new prioress, and then Denise Scharley, and Liliane Berton, and Rita Gorr as Mother Mary, who's dying to be martyred with the rest of the nuns and winds up not being martyred with the rest of the nuns. God has other plans for Mother Marie. And then there are a couple guys, but essentially this is such an amazing cast. And the orchestra, it's the Paris Opera, and the orchestra, the National Théâtre National de l'Opéra, the Paris Opera Orchestra under Pierre Dervaux. It's one of the great opera recordings of the 20th century. All the more so because it was made, proximate to the premiere of the work with the composer still around. And it's just amazing for that reason. But it is an incredibly moving, unbelievably beautiful experience, this opera. It really, really is. You cannot watch it if you're like even vaguely human without being moved to tears at the end. It's really something else. It's a gut wrencher. And I remember I've told this story before, but it really is so amazing. This is one of those operas, and they do it at the Met. If you go to the Met, you see a lot of nuns show up because people think, oh, well, it's about nuns. Let's get Sister so-and-so a ticket. It's a nice gift to give to your friend who's a nun. And they give it to their friend who's a nun, and the nun goes to see it. The nun has to be carried out on a stretcher because it's so overwhelmingly emotionally powerful and gripping. I remember, this is true, leaving a performance of it with watching, a group of 3 nuns, one of whom literally was being carried out by the other 2. She was inconsolable. And I can't blame them. I mean, it hits them harder, I suppose, than the rest of us, but it still packs quite a punch for the rest of us. And God, I love this piece. It's just an amazing, amazing experience. Now, there are other pretty good performances. Kent Nagano did a good one that was on Virgin, a little softer edge than this. The music could take a little bit more, I think, guts than Nagano pumps it with. There's an English one on Chandos, which is also pretty good. I mean, really, really pretty good. But this is the one. This is the one to get. And I can't recommend it strongly enough. I just love it. Really, really love it. It just blew me away the first time I heard it, and it does every time. It's a no-fail experience. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.